So yeah, I'm definitely a chord guy. You've picked up on that, and I probably obsess a little too much about the chords, honestly.
Well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing that. I love that you're never afraid to use a 5 minor chord, which is the greatest chord in any song, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Two, three, four, five.
I don't own you. I don't even know you. We were once, but that was then. I got my piece out, made my mind up. There's no point in looking back. Miles of open road ahead. Dust and fiction fill my head. To someone stranded on the highway, hand in hand, you going my way. Cars are passing, the sun is fading fast. Fade one.
Hey, Rob, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to have a chat with you. So yeah, I came to know you, a friend introducing me to Spy Mob first.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started seeking out other Minneapolis-based bands and found your band's information on the internet, and then bought all the records on iTunes.
Wow.
And-
Thank you.
And then just started letting all of my musician friends in Atlanta hear you guys, and they were just all knocked out with the sound of the band.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for spreading the word.
Yeah, it was just it just checked all the boxes of everything that I like to hear. You know, good songwriting, good production, great playing and singing, and so yeah, I just really would like to just get some information about you, just find out
Sure.
about you and
Yeah.
what led you to be where you are now.
If we want to go way back, so I was born and raised in Duluth, Minnesota, and went to college down near the cities, Twin Cities, St. Olaf College. Started a music major, didn't really find my place there. I didn't really want to pursue a traditional music degree, so I didn't end up finishing that major, but I got an English major. And I should say, musically, my musical background is I took piano lessons in junior high school, played bass in electric bass and jazz band, and choir in college and that sort of thing. So I sort of had a mix of experiences. But it wasn't until after college that I really sort of found my voice as a songwriter, and I started writing songs, and I was kind of trying to find my place in the music scene here in the cities, and played for some side projects as a keyboard guy, and then eventually tried to form my own band, Terramara, and it's quite a task, I tell you. I went through a number of players before I found a solid lineup, and I have been with the same guys now since like 2005, I think, 2004, 2005. And just started putting together some demos, and then we got a local producer to do an album with us. And, we've just been kind of following our own path. I don't know if we really fit in with the musical trends of the day, but we've been kind of just doing our thing. And like you said, we're sort of like-minded with Spy Mob, sort of a jazz rock hybrid thing,
Yeah.
I guess. So I guess that brings me up to, so we put out 3 records, and and then took a little bit of a break, and then I decided to do a solo project that I put out in 2016, and then I was getting ready to do some more work on another album, or maybe even a Terramara album, and then the pandemic hit, and then just kind of everything just kind of fell apart for a while. But now my great ambition here now is not only to do a solo album, but also a new Terramara record. I got the guys back on the same page, and hopefully we're gonna, move forward. It's really hard, they're all really busy, and but we're doing one song at a time right now. But I would like to do a whole record if I can. So,
well, everything that I've heard that you've released, from those band albums to your solo album to the stuff that you're putting out now, man, it's just good songwriting. I think it's funny that you've wound up being an English major, because I'm sure that gave you a lot of additional tools in the toolbox for being a songwriter.
Yeah, it did help. I think I attached more importance to the lyrics. Like I actually did try really hard to come up with meaningful lyrics to my songs, so they're not just kind of throwaways,
Yeah.
And I'm glad you noticed that. I've been trying to make that, as important as the music. I think a lot of people do listen to lyrics. I don't know if I was, just as a listener, I don't know if I was ever really captured by the lyrics of songs, although I know what it's about. But now, well, like Sting, Sting's probably a good icon to sort of emulate. He's sort of literate, and he's really trying to pack a lot of meaning into the songs, with the lyrics. But
yeah.
I just got a note from a guy in England who heard my Afterlife song from my solo record. I don't know if you remember that one, but
yeah.
And he was very effusive. He's just I cry to this song, and he was super emotional about it. I'm just wow, this makes it all worthwhile to try to really put something into the narrative of the song.
I will tell you that my wife and I, if we were to have a song, your song, All That I Am, I made a ringtone out of that song that was, when my wife called, that's the song that would play.
Oh, wow. That's just, that warms my heart to hear that. Yeah, no, that's what you want as a songwriter. You want to be able to reach people. And that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about it as I was getting ready for this. I told everyone that I knew, all my buddies that play music in Atlanta, they were all digging what you guys were putting out. My only iTunes review that I ever did was for your album. I was talking about how great it was.
Thank you.
So yeah, man, it just there was something about it that just really connected with what what my ears like to hear, it just shows the power of what a song can do to your heart and to your brain, and that's what it did.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm trying to remember if I probably read that review. Was that for do you remember which album or was it just
Let's see, it would have been the second album.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I may have put something on there because I remember this one guitar solo having this really Pat Metheny type thing about it.
Yes, that sounds like Carl. Carl Koopman is my longtime guitar player and really integral to the sound. And yeah, big Pat Metheny guy, but he's got his own style. He's amazing. I really think he's kind of like my secret weapon on a lot of these recordings. He really comes with ideas and parts and transforms the music. Even now, it's like I've been sending out demos to the guys, and he'll immediately have some amazing ideas about, to transform the song and the arrangement.
Yeah.
And anytime he gets involved, it just sounds better. So, I mean, I'm in good hands with him, Just one example, we finally got back on track in 2023 with a single called Beautiful Circles, and we put that out in early 23, and that was one where, I give it to Carl. He comes over, we start recording, and he's got this beautiful like pattern that he plays at the beginning of the song, and I'm just like, wow, I never would have come up with any of that stuff, And then you get into the verse and the chorus. All of a sudden, you hit the chorus, and then we got some pretty heavy guitar and bass, and Carl's looking at me going, "This is definitely a Terramara joint now. This is not a Rob Meany tune anymore." I mean, he transforms it, So I got just all kinds of accolades for him. That's all I'd have to say.
Great player, just plays just what fits for the song. It's really good.
That's a really important point. I mean, he does sort of have a respect for what fits with the song, And there's lots of stuff coming down the pike. I've got my solo stuff. I can do whatever I want. I think the Terramara thing, I'm almost like, hey, we sort of have a brand here. Like we have a style that means Carl and the other guys are as much a part of this as I am. And I want to milk every bit of that, So I bring the songs, and if Carl's like, hey, this is going to be a banger, this could be a rocker, let's go all out with the guitars, blah, blah. I'm just like, hey, go for it, man.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can come up with.
Yeah. So when you say, for example, when you recorded the Terramara albums versus your solo album, how was the approach for the two of those? Would you say Terramara is more of a shared responsibility between piano and guitar? Is it more of a guitar band? How would you define that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it has sort of evolved over the years. And depending on the song, it could be more like, I remember our third album, that Destined Fiction record, I was consciously thinking, I'd really like to see what it would sound like to incorporate more guitar in the sound. Because in a sense, it was sort of a keyboard-based band to begin with, and with all my, jazz stylings and whatever. But I thought, let's do a little more poppy rock record with Carl a little more out front. And that's I think that album maybe had a little more of that kind of style.
Yeah.
So when I guess to answer your question, then when we get to the solo stuff, I guess it's more about like going from a rock quartet sort of sound, which is, kind of traditional in the rock world. I would sort of, hey, what else can we do instrument-wise? What else can we do arrangement-wise to make this sound a little more like a singer-songwriter approach?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think there was like maybe, and I'm very conscious of this, like when I write the song or when I approach the production, like there was only like one song I would say on the solo record, and that's The View, that probably sounded anything like a Terramara song. Like the rest of it was definitely like in a different space. So yeah, solo, sometimes I get confused myself because it's like, this is all kind of Rob Meany stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I can really define exactly what it is, but I feel like I've got a style. I should just go with that. And, it depends on what I want to do production wise. There's so many different avenues for that.
Yeah. Do you record all those albums at your place, or do you do it somewhere else?
I try to do a lot of it here at home now because gathered over the years, I've gathered enough equipment that I can do pretty solid like piano, the keyboards, the vocals, and then if I need drums, I mean, we got to go in the studio. And then part of it is just with all the Terramara records, and then my apologies to our drummer, but we book like a whole weekend, and we say, hey Dave, can you cut 10 songs in the weekend? All we're trying to do is get like some solid bass tracks, to work from, and then we go do stuff at my place or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the newer stuff I'm doing here. In fact, Beautiful Circles, I said, hey, let's see if we can do it all right here, except for I'll go to a small studio and get Dave to cut his track by himself, and then I'll do bass and guitar over here, and then I just send it off to a guy to mix it. And that's part of it too. I mean, a big part is just finding the right person to mix.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm lucky to be surrounded by some amazing people here in Minneapolis. I use a guy named Andy Thompson who he produced that solo record, and he's an amazing guy. I mean, he can do anything, and he's produced a lot of talent out of here and elsewhere. But he mixed that Beautiful Circles single and the second one too, Dreamers in Dreamland. Those two, I mean, you can't believe the transformation between what I gave him for tracks and what it ended up sounding like. It's just, I mean, that's the magic that I'm just like, is beyond me in some ways.
Yeah. Well, when you talk to him, tell him that I said that on your solo album, that's about as good of a snare drum sound as I've ever heard. The snare drum just, man, it sounds so good.
He's a master at that. He played, and that's an interesting comment because we did have a number of different drummers on that. So he actually played drums on a few tracks, and then I had Dave on a few from Terramara, and then I had another guy, Pete Hennig, and maybe some other folks too. But yeah, he was able to dial in a consistent sound on a lot of different sessions, so it's kudos to him.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
It doesn't lose what you put inside. It seals up like a drum, and it stores those tears for many years to come. Oh, why did I let you go?
When you mentioned Minneapolis, I was curious, what is it about that city and the music scene? All of us that aren't from Minneapolis, we just kind of look at it in awe, like, how can one city crank out so many great musicians?
That's a really good question. I don't know exactly what spawned it, but I think I gotta think, I don't know how far back we can go, but I gotta think that Prince really put us on the map.
Sure.
In a lot of ways. And maybe what emulated from that. And then you had, the Replacements, Husker Du. I mean, you had some really seminal bands that started here. And I don't know, there's just a lot of people involved in the arts up here.
Yeah.
And I mean that like in the broad sense of theater, musicals. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of, there's dance. There's, there's so many facets to it. And I think you're just going to get a lot of people. There's just a lot of musicians. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. There's just so many people to work with.
Yeah.
But I'm sure every town has a tight community of people like that. And yeah, that's a really good question. I'd have to think more on that.
From an outsider's perspective, just looking at it, it's like, man, there are a lot of great players and singers that have come from that area. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, you were in Atlanta for a long time. That's also kind of a hot spot, isn't it?
Oh, man. Yeah. Great scene. Yeah, I started out as a drummer and realized I could get a lot of work as a singing bass player. Bass players that can sing are in short supply, so that's what I did there.
Well, I gotta tell you, man. I started off on bass a little bit too, and bass players are always in demand. And I told that to my two sons, who both play bass.
Oh, cool.
I'm like, hey man, if you want to be in a band, if you play bass, you're always going to find a spot,
That's
know.
it.
And there's a lot of guitar players, but bass, I mean, that's a niche. It's a good niche.
Especially bass players that don't play bass like a guitar player. You know what I mean? that don't play too much. I mean, that's what is that old saying? There's no money above the fifth fret. You know, there's like, there's if you can just play to the song, your calendar will stay busy forever.
Yeah. Totally. I believe it.
So when you were growing up, what were you listening to? What kind of, were you hearing music at home? Musical family? What was that part of your life like?
So I wouldn't say I have a musical family. Like my parents weren't super active as musicians. They were, I mean, I think they sang in church and whatnot, and they were interested in the arts. They were both artists. So my dad was art professor at UMD, University of Minnesota in Duluth, and my mom was a fiber arts person, so she did weavings and spinning and weaving, and I guess from that they were very supportive of doing the arts, so they really got us involved early on in music. And I should say too, my younger sister Catherine is a professional oboe player for the National Symphony. So
in DC?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So she really took to that as well and followed that path. So I guess in a sense we are a musical family, although our parents weren't super active. But yeah, so from the early stages, I was really taken with the piano. And I didn't have a piano in the house early on. And I used to go sneak into the church that we went to, and I'd play on that piano. And then I think my parents got the idea that maybe I should, have a piano and take some lessons. So we actually got a piano. And then I think it was from my grandparents. So I started taking lessons, and I did listen to and play a lot of classical music. So I think that probably informs my approach to songwriting. I think I have a sort of a classical approach. And then I started to listen to jazz. My teen years, I think I was mostly influenced by listening to jazz records, classical, mostly the piano, like Chopin and some of the more, Bach, Beethoven, the big ones, Mozart. And then Chicago, Doobie Brothers, Steely Dan a bit. Although I have to say, if I could sort of go on the record, I would say that was the one band everybody sort of seized on when they heard Terramara. And I have to say, I appreciate it. I'm honored by the comparison, but I have to say I wasn't like that wasn't like the band for me. I almost feel like I came at it from the same place that they came at it from. Like they listened to jazz, I listened to jazz. We both sort of informed our songwriting from the jazz, but I'll take that as a compliment that we sound like Steely Dan, because we do have a lot of jazz. I put a lot of jazz sort of voicings and changes, and I try to keep it interesting that way. But yeah, so I guess that was my base, and then I just along the way, Peter Gabriel and Beatles, of course. When you're growing up, everybody's listening to the Beatles. I learned a lot of Beatles songs, and I don't know. I guess it was one of those things where I didn't know anything about music scene or bands and stuff. I didn't even, I was just kind of flying blind to get into it. And so I didn't really understand that whole scene. I had to sort of figure it out. It took a long time, but that was kind of where I was at.
When did you start playing gigs?
I think I really saw myself as a piano player early on. I didn't really get into the songwriting until after college, but I think my initial goal was just sort of how can I make money doing music? How can I have a music career? So seeing myself as a piano player, I kind of fit myself in the slot of, okay, I'm going to do any piano gigs that come up. So I'd playing at, receptions, weddings, events, learned a lot of that kind of music, and lounge style music. I learned how to play jazz standards and stuff on my own. And so I did that over the years to make money. And I didn't really see myself as a singer until much later. And that was a little more of a challenge. I didn't come to that naturally. I had to sort of push myself to sort of sing and play and learn how to write songs. I think at some point I just wanted to be a part of the scene, and I wanted to be trying to test that out. But that was all going on at the same time while I was trying to be whatever kind of musician I could be, I guess, to make money. I mean, you know how that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. I work in technology. I'm a tech director at a private school in St. Louis. But I basically worked also full-time as a musician, and I understand, man, the hustle of that, and it takes quite a commitment to do it and to just be faithful and have people around you that are willing to sign up for that ride with you. You know, I have a supportive wife who's that way, and it's tough.
Yeah, so my wife is also very supportive, and I had to cobble together a lot of different stuff to make it work. So like I would say for a good 10 years, I was trying to write music for television commercials and radio and stuff like that. So I kind of burned out on it after a while, but it kind of sucked all my creative juices. But I decided to sort of wean myself off that a few years back. But I was doing that pretty heavily early on. And my other gig is teaching piano lessons. So I do that part-time. And then I still do a lot of solo gigging. And you probably are aware of just the fact that, hey, if you can play covers, people will pay you pretty decent to play covers. So I'm not below doing some cover gigs. I try to mix in my own stuff in there to sneak it in there.
Sure.
But yeah, I can make a decent amount of money here just playing gigs on the weekends.
You know, I love to hear your original material, but I'm sure hearing you do some other people's material, you probably do it really well.
Well, I kind of try to stay within my wheelhouse, which I know is going to be sort of the keyboard players. So I do, Elton John, Billy Joel, a lot of Beatles. So yeah, I'm kind of sticking with that kind of stuff. And yeah, I try to mix it up a bit, but yeah, I try to specialize a bit just because I know I probably sound better if I do that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally understand. I have my thing, my range, my style that works. And
what do you like to play when you're doing gigs?
So I sing. I mean, and I sing of various styles, but I work a lot with guys. We do some Steely Dan, a lot of Beatles stuff, Bruce Hornsby.
Oh yeah.
I typically have worked a lot in bands with good keyboard players. I've been very lucky to work with good keyboard players, and I think I gravitate toward projects that feature that and material that features that instrument. So I like the Billy Joel stuff, the material that kind of lets that instrument sit out in the front. That's what I prefer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was a kind of a golden period there, I think in the 70s, 80s, and it's great you mentioned Bruce Hornsby because he's a big hero of mine too, just the way he incorporated some different stylings into it. But yeah, I'm the same way. I think we probably have the same top 10 list or something.
So. Yeah, Hornsby's a big hero of mine too for a lot of reasons, in that he draws from so many influences. I mean, he plays contemporary classical music in his solo shows he released a jazz trio album, and then his band stuff is just unbelievable. And yeah, he's the total package.
Yeah, I love how he's evolved. I mean, you're right. He's done so many different genres, and then he takes some of his old stuff and he puts a twist on it or whatever. It's just great to see him out, just doing his thing still, and people are still excited about him, about hearing him.
Yeah, I have a friend whose best friend is John Thompson, his B3 player, and they were coming through Atlanta, and I played a gig with him and the guitar player that was with Bruce at the time, and we were just chatting about that whole deal, and I was like, what is it like playing with him? He said, well, there's no set list. We never know what we're going to do. He takes requests all night, and he'll even play some of his material in different keys just to keep us on our toes. They just never know what's going to happen.
Wow. That's a tough gig. I mean, that's a high
gig.
bar. That's a high bar. Yeah, it's great. Sometimes he'll even post like, oh, here's what we did last night. And I mean, it's this detailed list of all these like sideways that go off in this direction and over here. And like you say, I didn't realize like he's taking requests all night. Well, wow, that's wild. I mean, that's wide open. You have to know your entire catalog probably.
He'll take requests and do songs that aren't even his. He'll just do whatever. Like, man, you're brave.
Yeah, so talented. I mean, it's just amazing.
I noticed, and hearing you tell your story, it just confirms a lot of my suspicions, I suppose, that I hear a good music theory foundation, a lot of good voice leading in your piano playing. And was music theory a big thing that you studied? Because I hear that in the way you write.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I took some music theory in college, but I think most of my music theory that I really internalized was just learning how to play jazz standards and how to voice chords and how to play pop songs. I mean, after you learn about 100, 200 pop songs, you kind of get an idea of what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And I think that was my big revelation is just learning how other people wrote songs, and then I try to follow that lead. I'm a little weird, I think, in that at least if you go and listen to some of the Terramara stuff, I'm like almost purposely trying to do something a little odd with some of the songs, because when I look back now, it's like, yeah, boy, that was kind of a weird twist, but it kind of works, and like I'll go from major to minor, or like we'll change keys and go to a different chorus key or something, those kind of things. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I just do that subconsciously because I want it to sound fresh. I want it to go somewhere differently. I don't know. I want to keep it interesting, but not stray too far. So we're not like in some crazy alternative universe where it's not making sense to people, but I just go with what sounds good to me. And sometimes I don't want to hear the same progressions. I think that's what it comes down to. It's like, I don't want to hear a 1-4-5 too much. I mean, let's see what else we can put in there, and, so yeah, I'm definitely a chord guy. You've picked up on that, and I probably obsess a little too much about the chords, honestly.
Well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing that. I love that you're never afraid to use a 5 minor chord, which is the greatest chord in any song, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I'll try to keep those coming. See what else I can dig up. Yeah,
that's good.
Rushing by you, see that ocean meet the hot sand. Hustlers hustling under palm trees, gotta hawk those trinkets to dreamers here in dreamland. And in that brilliant light, time stops cold, and we can live and not grow old. Find yourself on that shore, lost in time, forevermore.
What is your songwriting process? Are you typically music first, lyrics later, or that's how it normally starts?
Yeah. And I don't know how common that is, but I've never done it any other way. I always write the music first. I start with the chords, and I'm playing some chords, and I like the pattern, and I'm like, okay, now let's see what could I hum over this that would sound interesting. So I'll come up with a melody line, and then of course you fit the lyrics to the phrases. I mean, I guess that's always been the natural process. I'm really interested in how many people do it that way, as opposed to, hey, I just wrote some lyrics last night. Let's see if we can
Right.
shoehorn these in. I know that's how Elton John works with his lyricist. Is it Bernie Taupin?
Yes. Correct.
He hands them some lyrics. It's like, Bernie, I need a song about this. Okay. Hands him some lyrics, and somehow Elton John is able to make a song out of that. It's amazing.
It's amazing to me too.
Yeah. So that's my process. And along the way, I guess if you want to get into the Terramara world, they're really good about, okay, we really should cut this part and let's rearrange this. So they might have ideas about rearranging the sections or different, why don't I play a solo here, or why don't you not sing here, and then we'll do this and blah, but I'm kind of on my own as far as the lyrics and the melody and then the chords. But after that, I kind of let those guys just go wild and see what happens. It's usually a pretty good result. So
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering about that, and that answers my question about that collaborative process when the band works out stuff. Do you I was wondering if you came with ideas, kind of a full sketched idea, or if each player kind of writes their own parts for those songs.
It kind of varies by song, because I have, the studio here now. I do some, like, if I have a specific idea for a sound or a part, I'll probably put that in the demo, and sometimes I don't want to do that because I want them to come up with something really cool, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I'll just throw like a piano or a keyboard demo and see what they come up with. But, like on Beautiful Circles, I had a pretty elaborate demo already set to go.
Okay.
And it still didn't stop them from putting their own signature on it. So that's a good sign, because I don't want to like limit them by saying, okay, here's what I wrote for a bass part, and here's what I wrote for, everything else. I just sort of thought, well, let's try this. I'll throw you what I got, and then have you come in and play over it. And and it worked out pretty good that time. If you go back to like the second record, 4 Blocks to Hennepin, that was a little more collaborative because I had a different bass player, and we were in more of a, hey, let's rehearse every week kind of mode.
Okay.
And that allowed me to sort of step back and say, you know what, I'm just going to play this Rhodes part, and why don't you and the drummer kind of come up with something over that, so he was really, I got to give him credit for a lot of the bass lines on that record, which was stellar. That was really his thing. Like, so there's really some signature stuff on there that I can point to where it's more collaborative. And, and the drummer too. It's like I just want to let him get the feel, and usually it works out. I just let him come up with a groove.
Those guys play really well, and again, just like we were talking earlier about your guitar player, everyone the parts are just appropriate, and they just fit the song really well. There's nothing's ever distracting from anything else.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for just being more experienced too. I remember like our first record was kind of like everybody's just playing all over the place, which was fine, and it worked out, and we had a sound. But then the second record, I think we kind of were a little more like analytical about it. Like, let's be a little more circumspect about who's playing when and what. So that record had a lot more space, It just had a wider palette. And then, as you get older, I think you just realize you can't put too much into the mix. You have to sort of pick and choose what are the priorities here,
Yeah, I was just telling someone that the other day, that the older you get is when you realize when to use the pencil and when to use the eraser. And that's... a lot of it is just time is what gives you that knowledge.
Yeah, it's funny because it's you kind of go hog wild when you got these demo. I put together these demos in my studio, and I can go crazy with. I could put orchestras and do whatever I want. Like recently, I put together a demo, and I had like 4 or 5 acoustic guitars on there. And I sent it over to the guy to mix it, and he came back and said, I think we just need to start over, like just one guitar maybe one little keyboard over here, and then we're going to add some vocal. And it's just kind of reinforced the idea that it's like you said, get the eraser out. It's a process of subtraction
Yeah.
during the mixing.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
And you got to find a place for everything. And, it's really changed my view now. I'm going to him with simple demos and saying, what else do you hear? We just finished a song I'm trying to put out in a few weeks, and it's an acoustic guitar thing, and we don't even have percussion on there. So, I mean, it's going to be really stripped down, but he added a lot of things himself. This is another one of these crazy can do everything kind of producer, mixer guys. Matt Patrick, I'm working with from the Library Recording Studio, which is an amazing place. He's a musician, and he's got a really good sense of what works and what doesn't. So when I'm working with him, I'm confident that he knows what will work for the song. So when I'm doing solo stuff with him now, I just send him I take it as far as I can, and then I say, hey, what do you think about this? And then he'll kind of put on both his producer hat and his mixing hat, and he'll just strip it down or change it up, and he'll sing on it, he'll add parts, and it's just great. I mean, it really helps me.
There's so much to be said about working with people that you can trust, and that you trust their process and trust their creativity, and they'll know what to add and what not to add,
Yeah.
Not wanting to put too much of their own fingerprint on it, just putting what's necessary.
Yeah, and that does take some. He's got both the hard skills and the soft skills. Like when I go in the studio with him, he can work lightning fast. So if he has an idea or he wants to do something, he can just do it. And it's like, for me, I'd be messing around for an hour trying to figure out how to make it all sound good, And then he's got the ear, so then he can just like, nope, we're just gonna pull this all out. We're just gonna put this and the panning and all the plugins. I mean, what that's a whole nother area that it's beyond me in some ways.
And it's one thing to put the tracks down and try not to go overboard with the tracking, but then you can go overboard in the mixing and the post-production piece of it, adding too many effects or going too crazy with the EQ. I mean, there's so many pieces to this.
There is, and it's all about choices. I mean, I find that really is what it comes down to. It's like you have to make a choice of what do you want it to really sound like, because there are some bold choices to make. I mean, you could really have massive delay on your voice. Maybe some people will like that. I don't know. It's like you sort of have to decide what you really want this to sound like, and that's hard.
It's hard, yeah. And the effects on it can almost define the sound of the track as much as the instrument or the vocal can.
Yeah. And I struggle with that because I want to try something new, but sometimes you get set in your ways, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I want so much reverb on my voice. Maybe you want some other effects on there. I mean, you can do some bold things that would be really cool. Maybe you want to try some vocoder. I don't know. You could go crazy.
Yeah.
But I haven't reached that point yet. I maybe have thoughts about doing some other side project where, hey, sky's the limit. Let's just try some experimental stuff.
Yeah, let's just go for it and see what happens. I always like to ask this of people when I'm talking to them. What do you listen to that people would be surprised that you listen to? It doesn't even have to be a guilty pleasure type of music. What are some things that you listen to that people may not think?
I listened to those Taylor Swift records during the pandemic, the more folky ones, and kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Kind of liked a lot of it. And
I'm right there with you.
And I'm like, this is a whole different side. That made me realize it's like, yeah, you can make choices. You can sound however you want, and you can just break the model. And she's able to do that. She worked really hard to come up with a different sound for that record. I guess there were two of them. And I really liked that. I thought that I appreciated that more than a lot of her other stuff that's more slick, produced.
Yeah.
Then she had Bon Iver in there, and the guy from The National was producing. It just sounded really cool. And I was like, I'd go in that vein more than I would like in a pop vein, you know.
Yeah, well, and it shows too that a good song is a good song, and however you dress it up, if it's a bad song, it doesn't matter what you do with it, right?
Yeah,
You know?
and that's a really good point, because I do struggle with the treatment of my songs. I do have a lot of demos that I'm piling up here, which is great. I have material, but I don't know how to treat them, and I'm not sure. That's kind of been the roadblock sometimes. It's like, how do I want? Because like I'll write stuff on piano all day long, but do I really want this to be a piano song?
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of
Yeah.
people, I was listening to Prince the other day, his estate release, him just like jamming on piano. I don't know if you've seen that on iTunes. He's got
Yes.
have you heard this?
I've heard
And
it. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this guy's, well, first of all, he's a genius. And second, he's writing on piano. And then you hear the song later and it's like, there's nothing in there on piano. I mean, it's a completely different song.
Right.
And you're thinking, wow, I really need to think outside the box. You don't have to be Elton John on every song. You know what I mean? You can completely ditch the original instrument. And I learned this lesson pretty hard on that last solo record, because when I was working with the producer, he was starting to mix the songs, and I'm like, wow, he's totally took everything out of there except for, it was like all, the piano or the keyboard. I mean, it was a completely different sound, but it was like, yeah, I see what you're saying. We can make this a different kind of song if I don't have like piano like all over the place.
Yeah. It's the temptation is to write to what you know and write to what you're comfortable with. And, look, we want to produce what feels comfortable to us, and
Yeah.
I think it's hard sometimes to take those risks.
There is something I really like about a piano vocal tune that I never want to let go of, because there's so much, because that's my main instrument. There's so much I can do to color the track. And even if it's just vocal and piano, which I may actually put out a few of those on this next record, is just, here's me on piano and vocal, and I'll have all of the necessary parts in there. I'll have the rhythm and the bass, and so you almost don't need to add anything,
Yeah.
But like you said, I was like, I think you were inferring it's like, yeah, you can start off with that, but maybe you want to switch it up. But if you can get away with, like you said, the song is the main thing. A good song is going to shine through. I think that's great, because I would much rather not get it all cluttered up.
Yeah.
But I always feel like it's a little naked. It's like, are people going to want to listen to this? It sounds like I'm just, it's a live thing. But I don't know.
I can tell you as a listener of your music and what you write and how you perform it, I think people would go nuts over hearing that. Well, everything you've released over the years is fantastic, but to me, at the root of it is you singing your songs, and I think that's what keeps me coming back, because I like your songs and I like the way you do them. That's really it.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. I think that fortifies me to continue to write piano songs and lay them out there for you, because I'm happy to do that. And maybe there will be some of that more stripped down stuff, because it really could condense the process from months and months and months to like, I mean, I've got songs ready to go here. I can record them right now. But I'm just like, how do I want to treat it, But if I could get a group of songs together, I'm just like, here's just vocal and piano, guitar and piano. I mean, we could have this record done in a few months,
Yeah, I think for me, how can I explain this? I think sometimes for me, the best thing I can do is just get out of my own way, and get out of my head about it. And because I tend to overthink things like that. And
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So,
I
just press record and go for it. That's my advice.
Yeah, I tend to agonize over every little thing, and it's not healthy. And I really need to, I think, get in a space where I'm not thinking about the audience and I'm not thinking about anything other than like, oh, I really like how this sounds. Because I think that's the best place to be. I think I fall into that trap of like, okay, what's everybody going to think about this, you know? But if it sounds good to you, I think I'm happy, you know, because that's what I aspire to, is just like, just making myself happy with the recording. A lot of times that's when I'll sign off. It's like, you know, I think this sounds really good and I don't know what people are going to think about it, but I'm happy, you know.
Yeah, that's it. You know, and there's a certain part of it too, is you want to write music that's accessible to people and that people will connect with, but at the same time, write and perform music that you know you would like to listen to. And chances are that's going to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think you gotta be in that frame of mind, because I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where you're trying to write for an audience and then you don't like it and they don't like it. So it's like, what was the point of that? Yeah.
Well, I'm digging everything you're releasing, and I'm just gonna keep waiting for more and more stuff to come out. And you know, everyone that's listening to this, I just encourage you to go out and check out Rob's music. It's left quite an impact on me and everyone that I've let hear it. They're just knocked out with your songs, man. We all love it.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It inspires me to continue. So
Yeah.
I will. I'll get right after we get off this call. I'm gonna start working on the next song here.
Good. I expect a full report. Please keep me posted.
I sure will.
So, yeah. Well, Rob, man, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I just this has been an absolute pleasure, just getting to hang out with you and tell you how much your music means to me, and just get to know you better.
Oh, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's keep in touch.
Beautiful circles tied to the landscape, lifting our spirits here in the liquid dark. Out in the cornfield, they will receive us, waiting in silence. We keep a watchful eye. join the night.
Thanks for listening to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm your host, Brad Williams. The show's theme is called Placation and was written by Mark Mundy. Drop me a line at the email address, thebandwichtapes@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe to receive new episodes of the podcast. And while you're at it, please tell someone else about the show. Thanks for listening.